So, Namaskar. Thank you so much to the organizers for having me here and to speak on a topic which is extremely close to my existence and to my dream for what a future India will be. A lot of you who are sitting here in the audience will aspire to do so many things with your life. Some of you will become social media influencers, some of you may join politics, others may become bureaucrats. Whatever you do, you'll become academics. But whatever you do, you have to understand one thing: it's the way you treat the people around you, which is very important. And linked to that is how you treat yourself. And therein rests the story of the women of India, which has the highest dropout rate as far as the professional space is concerned. Almost 40% of the women drop out for a variety of reasons. I have seen it happening in my journey. And the Indian woman is unfortunately one of those who treats herself extremely poorly. Let's therefore have a look at what the Astra can be, or what was the Astra in my life. Very important, because I was born in the 1960s to an India which had already given full rights of equality and equity to women. But sadly, the woman was yet to come to terms with it. That was a tool she could never deploy. And that is where the difference comes in between my journey and that of the others. Mine may not be a representative journey, but definitely it is a journey, because it needs to be narrated, that at the end of the day, I never listen to all the no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that, this is wrong, a woman doesn't do it, you can't step out of the house, how will you live alone in a city, blah, blah, blah. Mind you, I'm talking 1970s, 1980s, tougher days, without phones, without mobility, without all the facilities you younger generations see. What did I do? I marched to the beat of my own drum. And that's my story. So let's briefly recap. I was born in 1961 to a very large family. Large meaning the extended family. I had large neighborhoods, large families, mix of boys, girls. We all grew up happily. Luckily for us, we were all given the benefit of extremely good education, good schooling, great college, but cut. That's where the paths diverged. The men had the professional choices they wanted to take. They became engineers, doctors. That was my family. So I'll restrict myself to that. And those were the professions of those days. I'm talking again of a different context. As far as the women were concerned, by the time they turned 16 or 17, what were they dreaming of? There can only be one thing in their psyche: we have to get married. And so, like nine pins, marriage, 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 marriage. I would think, oh my God, where is the self actualization? What happens to my education? If I'm not able to fulfill a particular self need, a self actualization, where do I go? So there was that very rebellious streak, I can say. No, I'm not a rebel. I'm an extremely conservative person. When it comes to norms and social norms, I don't believe in aggression of any kind. I'm quite a placid person. But when it comes to me, my whole thing was, no, I've got to give myself a chance. And that was what I was not seeing in people around me. And also, there were extreme stereotypes which were prevailing that time. We were still living under extreme impact of a so-called colonial legacy. The color of the skin mattered, for instance, and definitely I scored very low there. So, pityingly, you would hear the larger family talk about my very poor chances as marriage, which was very good for me because it meant that I could pursue my dream on the side, which I did. So there was this very silent non conversation with my parents. And that is where I agree with the previous speaker. It's where it starts in the family, it starts within the family. Because I requested them, give me a chance, just give me a chance. And they said, okay, fine. It's not that the arranged marriage regimen was not happening in my life, But what was happening was that the chance was being given to me. I had already done my college by leaving my hometown. I was living alone in Delhi. I knew how to navigate my way. And those days, given the limited ambit of professional choices, you could become a teacher, you could become a lawyer, or you could take the civil service exam. I said, let me choose the third option. And with the grace of the Almighty, I qualified. And I thought, wow, I've climbed Mount Everest. Yeah, I've achieved everything. But the real journey starts when you enter a professional space. And that is the tougher part of anybody's existence. The real journey demands a lot of recalibration of your thoughts, of centrality, of navigation, of how to do things. Because, mind you, unlike a lot of other professions, you are given a very large window of over 3 decades to be in a particular system, to be in a particular setup. What do you do with yourself? And the early days are tough because there are lots of rules of operation in government, but there is no operating manual for anybody. And that whole, you were hit by patriarchy of an extreme kind. You had those seniors, largely men, who had a very benevolent, avuncular style. Here we have a girl in our office and we need to take care. Amongst the subordinates, women were there. Mind you, in both spaces there were women. We'd already been through one prime minister who was a woman. So it's not that the acceptability was not there. But what was happening was that the society was yet to come to terms with the fact that their daughters could step out and do this kind of work. So there was a lot of resistance coming from subordinates also. And there was intimidation of a lot of kind. And I'll be frank and accept in disclosing to you that often I would come back from lunch and open my drawer to find sexually intimidating messages, largely from my subordinates. And if I kicked it up to my then female boss, she'd say, "Arey, arey, chhod do." But I was not the kind of person who would tolerate it. And actually, last month I was at another meeting where I was speaking to a group of officers. And sadly, that trend continues till today. The best intimidation is the sexual intimidation, where patriarchy rooms up like this, wham, it's always there, but it says, boss, we have a physical domination over you. So, well, that was my thought, that I needed to have. I neither wanted to be a woman nor a man. I wanted to be myself, and I don't know how to express that to you, but that's what my thought was. So, what was it that I could counter society with? I don't want to be that 40% of the workforce which says, I can't take it and I'm going home. Also, around that time in the 1980s, I saw a lot of women officers struggling with sexual harassment, non inclusive workspaces. We have some very famous court cases of those times. We had the Vishaka judgment, which came in. If you have a posh committee today in your spaces, it is the result of the early, always look back into history to see what people did so that you have a now. The now has come from the past. And I said, I don't want to be them also. So you tolerate some, you get aggro at some. But what do? You develop knowledge. And that is where it's very important. If you're an academic, please don't waste your time. Write papers, read, attend conferences, make an ass of yourself in the beginning. But what happens? You grow. If you are a bureaucrat, you have very comfortable, the government will put you here today, there tomorrow, and the day after, and after that, retire you and say, okay, we had a great time with you. But that's not how it works. If you have to encounter a lot of, if you want to be known as a good professional, what you need is knowledge. I was, in that context, I had two very sharp experiences in the bureaucracy. One, I was posted in the budget division of the Ministry of Finance, where we used to prepare the budget. Mind you, there was a group of women with me. And mind you, budget making is an extremely tedious exercise. There are nights that you don't go home, or nights when you reach home very late. And everybody is running households, because by then the journey of life, I had met the partner, the man I wanted to marry. I had a child who was, as all children do, they give trouble in their early days. And I had no social support system. So these days, when I hear a lot of women say, "Oh, I don't have anybody to take care. Oh, I don't want to get along with my mother-in-law. I don't get along with my, whatever." The thing is, it was it was all happening to everybody. Everybody goes through that. But what happened is that in that process, I spent 7 years and I thoroughly enjoyed myself. And I realized that knowledge is the key. I kept on building up my knowledge. My first boss looked at me and he says, "You're a history student. How will you prepare the union budget? Do you know Excel?" Those were the two questions he asked. I said, "No, I'm a history student. I don't know economics. I don't know public finance." And, "Sir, yes, Excel, I have not even heard of it. I'm hearing it from your mouth." So I was very dejected. And what do I do? So I picked up an NCRT textbook. At class 10th, class 12th, I read them. It's very easy to pick up knowledge. Very easy. I also got a book called Deven Singh's Guide to Excel. 10, 12 books. I'm eternally indebted to Mr. Deven Singh, whoever he is, or wherever he is. That book cost me all of 20 rupees, but wow, it gave me an instrument which works till today. So that helped. And later on, as government does, I moved and became MD of National Housing Bank. It was a regulator. It was looking at housing finance companies. And wham, I reached there and we had the mother of all crisis of the 2018. A lot of you may not know about it, but do read about it. And I was sitting thick in the middle of it. I had no clue. Again, there is no operating manual to handle a crisis. What works is knowledge, and what works is application. So that's my first takeaway, giveaway for all of you. It works till now. I'm no longer in the service, but the kind of engagement I have, even to come here today, I did a lot of reading. What do I tell you which helps you? There's no point. I can keep on talking about my story because I've got 6 decades to fill. So we can have 6 days of a monologue from my side. But I need to give you something. So one of the things I learned was how to introspect, that very Harry Potterian way of going down into your thoughts and picking up what works. And that is the only giveaway I have. Never be lazy. Everyone has problems. There's nobody in this world who can say, "I have a kosher life." Kosher life. Everybody has problems. That's a given. How much you get depressed and dejected and drawn down by those problems is your call. And there can be worse problems which I don't even want to think of, which I too can face in my journey ahead. So don't be lazy. I tell that to my son. Next, there will be a lot of critics. The first trollers you meet are within your family. Am I right? Oh, come on. She's a girl. She's a this. She's a that. Let them listen from one ear, take it out from the other ear. Don't bother. You get used to it because you are a social media generation. Whatever you do, even this will go on social media. I don't even know what the response will be. There'll be enough people willing to troll anybody. Because once you have a human being, you have a mind and you have an opinion. How much should it impact you? Zilch, zero. Just the other day, somebody asked me, and this is my words with which I'll conclude. They asked me, "Oh, so you wear the pants in your house?" Now, I don't understand that terminology at all. I said, "No, I thought very simply to tell the person, actually, both of us have a leg each in the pants." And these days, since my son is living with me, finding his own path in life, we actually have a three-legged trouser in the house. So, ladies and gentlemen, and this applies to boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, march to the beat of your own drum. With these words, I conclude. Thank you.